All right, so it was an upset weekend in the NFL as the Vikings, who played several levels above themselves, beat the 49ers 22-17 at home. Surprising for a lot of reasons. The Vikings weren't very good this season. The Niners were excellent. And that Kirk Cousins historically shrinks in primetime games. He has a bad record on Monday Night Football and against playoff teams in his career, and was about, after that first interception, was about as good as I think I've ever seen Kirk Cousins play. We also saw the Bills, big favorites, get beat by the BB gun offense of the New England Patriots. A couple of small upsets, but 4 one-win teams went on to win this weekend, and it happens in the NFL. The margins are much closer. It's why the NFL is so much more popular than college football. It's because you go into a college football weekend, and if you get 2 upsets, it feels really special. In the NFL, you get weekends like this when teams that are going nowhere beat teams with a really good shot to make the Super Bowl. Again, I said this today on FS1. I don't think less of the Detroit Lions getting clobbered by the Ravens. NFC teams are 1-16 against Lamar Jackson, right? Like, if you've never played against Lamar Jackson live, it's a shock to the system. You get avalanched. The way to beat a Lamar Jackson, a team like that, is, you play them repeatedly and can figure out the Rubik's Cube a little on how to slow down Lamar Jackson. So, I don't think anything less of the 49ers. I think the 49ers, when they have Trent Williams back and Deebo Samuel and have a complete unit, they won't be playing. There's a good chance they will be playing a playoff game or 2 at home. But needless to say, this just happens in the NFL. I do think there's one thing to worry about if you're the 49ers. So they've been kind of injury plagued, not ravaged, but injury plagued for several years. It's becoming an older team. Trent Williams and Kittle, Bosa's got some, a lot of physicality and miles on those tires. There's a lot of, the linebackers. They've been in the league for a while. And so as you get older, you have more injuries. You just hope collectively everybody's ready to go by the playoffs. But last year, the defensive coordinator was DeMeco Ryans. So he is a former player, very good. He was a quick rising star as a coach. The Niners named him as a defensive coach, linebacker coach, coordinator, head coach, Texans. It was 4 or 5 year period. He flew through the organization of the 49ers. And I can remember his 3rd year, people saying, oh, this guy's going to be a head coach. And you're like, he was just playing years ago. He didn't go to the college level. He didn't bounce around the league. He coached for one team, the Niners. Quality control on defense, linebacker, defensive coordinator, gone. And he's been excellent so far with the Houston Texans. Steve Wilks, college head coach for a year, losing record. NFL head coach for a year, disaster, was fired. Then went to Carolina interim. But Steve Wilks bounced around college and pro coaching forever, a lot of jobs, a lot of cities, was not a rising star. And we've all had, most of us have had, one boss that's just exceptional. I've been in this business 30 years. I've worked with some really good people. Haven't had, only a couple of wow. And they usually are in and out of the building quickly, right? It's rare for anybody in any business. You see sometimes you have a coworker or a boss and you're like, wow, they're a visionary. That person, she's great. He's great. And that was DeMeco Ryans. Flew through the Niners organization, first team he coached with, and he was gone, head coach. And so I think they're just not as good. I noted this several times on FS1. They're not as good in the red zone defensively as they have been in previous years. And I think that's a coaching thing. We always talk about offensive coordinators, but we rarely talk about big leaps with defensive coordinators. Dan Quinn for the Cowboys has certainly been excellent. But if you look at the Vikings tonight, Kirk Cousins in that offense, 452 yards with an average O-line, no Justin Jefferson. They moved off Dalvin Cook, and they passed for almost 380 yards, 6.8 yards a play, 24 first downs, 8 for 13 on third down. you know, you lose D'Amico Ryans, they've lost their edge. The Niners are not as good situationally coaching on defense. Brock Purdy was, now we've seen Brock Purdy last couple of weeks playing from behind. And, it's not quite as special, as I've said many times. I think Brock Purdy's good. And I thought tonight you saw, Troy Aikman pointed this out, Brock Purdy 6 to 7 times throws the ball down the field, higher risk throws, and throws it accurately a lot. Now he had a couple of picks. One a bad pick, could have been on the receiver. But I've said this about Jordan Love. He just can't throw the ball down the field. He's completing 38% of his throws, 10 plus yards. Like Green Bay's got a problem at quarterback. Brock Purdy moves well enough, throws the ball aggressively down the field, and for the most part, very accurately. But there's a big difference in this league playing with a lead and a run game at home and trailing the entire game on the road. And Brian Flores is bringing heat with every snap, sometimes to his detriment, like that Christian McCaffrey touchdown. But that's a different ballgame. Playing from behind, you've got to throw. Everybody knows it. Brian Flores tends to be hyper aggressive, just a different ballgame. And so there's very few quarterbacks in my life that you can't distinguish a difference between they're playing with a lead or trailing. I think Brady was one of them. Elway was one of them. Patrick Mahomes is one of them. And I can't think of a fourth. So it's Brock Purdy looks very, very human playing from behind, but I think he's good. I think he throws the ball accurately down the field to a lot of different weapons. He's got some physical courage. He'll take a hit. So I like Brock Purdy. I don't think he's great. And I think over the last couple of games, playing from behind on the road, it's not the same quarterback. Nobody is really, except for your Elways and your Patrick Mahomes and your Bradys. So really interesting game. That's as well as Kirk Cousins has played. Jordan Addison, the rookie from USC, what a night. Again, they didn't. Steve Wilks, the defensive coordinator, they didn't throw a lot of changeups. I mean, Jordan Addison worked the Niners secondary from the beginning to the end. Didn't change much coverage as far as I could tell. But I think with Kirk Cousins, what you could look at if you're Minnesota, not only do you feel good about the win, I don't think it translates to anything beyond this win, but you showcased him. Think about that. You can get, if you move off Kirk Cousins, if you have a top 10, 12 pick, you're going to go get a quarterback. You can get, could you get a first round pick for Kirk Cousins? Certainly get a couple seconds. I mean, he looked young. He was accurate. Arm strength was good tonight. He's never been a big mover, but he can move a little. I thought Kirk Cousins standalone game against the 49ers. If I'm a general manager looking around this league, I'm like, he's somewhere between 10 and 13, 10 and 12. We have a good roster. Let's roll the dice. I mean, if you're going to give up 3 picks to get Trey Lance or move up to get college quarterbacks, you're not going to give up a second-round pick for Kirk Cousins? I think somebody is. I've said this about Justin Fields. He's got too much talent not to get a second chance. Sam Darnold got a second chance, right? He's just too much talent. So, I mean, Kirk Cousins tonight, he didn't look his age. And this is a very respected defensive roster for the Niners. And Kirk Cousins tore it up. He tore it up. He had that bad early pick. Boom, tore it up for the next 3.5 hours. So really interesting weekend. I don't, on a macro level, I don't feel much differently. I think Detroit will do just fine. I know they got crushed by the Ravens, but they'll win 11 or 12 games in the NFC. They will, host a playoff game, probably win, and then go on the road and probably lose. They'll go on the road and face a Philadelphia. Detroit will go on the road, face a San Francisco, and they'll probably lose. But considering they gave up Matt Stafford, they got Jared Goff. Goff came in with a kind of shaky reputation, right? Couldn't play in certain big games. I don't think less. I do think less of the Buffalo Bills, because unlike the Lions, I don't like their offensive line. I don't like their momentum. I thought they were bad at the end of last year. So there are, all losses are not the same. Buffalo losing to New England feels like we have a negative trend here. Detroit losing to Baltimore, I don't take much from it. That's a hard place to play. And I think right now Baltimore is the best team in the NFL. Last 2 weeks, I've thought Lamar Jackson has been the best player in the league. Absolutely beyond exceptional. So I don't take a ton from this game. San Francisco is going to probably win their division. I would say it's highly likely, and they're going to host a playoff game. And Minnesota's going nowhere, and it's going to move off Kirk Cousins. And now we'll probably get a little more off a showcase game. He plays in a lot of 1:00 games. These standalone games, every GM in the league is watching, doing their homework, got the TV on. Kirk Cousins, he probably got the Vikings another pick, or certainly a better pick. All right, NBA fans, basketball is officially back, and the DraftKings Sportsbook, official sports betting partner of the NBA, is celebrating with an unbeatable offer. New customers can get $200 instantly in bonus bets by throwing down just $5 on the NBA. That is a good deal. Win or lose, doesn't matter. You'll start the season with an instant W, a win. All right, DraftKings parlays, everybody's got a shot to even more basketball wins and bigger basketball wins. String together multiple bets. It's called a parlay. Same game parlay. Build your parlay across multiple games. And what does that give you? Better odds, so you can make a smaller bet and win more money. I like doing them. I like parlays. They're fun. Basketball is more fun when you're in on the action. And with DraftKings, you will be. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use the code Colin, COLIN. This NBA season, $10, $5. It's fun. It's juice. I love it. New customers, $200 instantly in bonus bets by betting just $5. Yeah, you heard it right. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The code is Colin, COLIN. The crown is yours. For a limited time, Verizon customers can get Netflix and NFL Plus for just $25 a month. It's called Plus Play. That's $120 in annual savings. Plus Play is a platform where Verizon customers can shop, manage, and save on the subscriptions that you already love, right? Like Netflix and NFL Plus. With NFL Plus Premium, you get access to live games on mobile, my fave, NFL Red Zone, NFL Network, and more. Just go to Verizon.com/plusplay. Verizon.com/plusplay to save on Netflix and NFL Plus today for a limited time only now. Limited time only. Very, very interesting. This Jim Harbaugh, Michigan story. People are adding to the story now, and that this low-level staffer, he bought tickets on a ticket app and had his iPhone and some equipment watching other teams. Listen, the Big Ten, like the SEC, cares so much about its football. It is so important for the revenue, the overall economy, and sort of the kind of emotional happiness of a lot of these Big Ten schools, that it's intense. And we've seen this in the SEC for years. If this story would have come out in the SEC, you'd be like, well, that's the cost of doing business. And, the Big Ten has got these esteemed academic powers, Penn State, Northwestern, Michigan. But Big Ten football is so financially strong. There is so much at stake. You can laugh and say, why would Michigan have to, do this against Rutgers and Maryland? It just shows you the intensity of the conference. And I think it's a lot of nothing burger. I think there'll probably be a slap on the wrist. The equivalent of sending an intern to spy using whatever the device is. It doesn't rise to, major suspension or forfeiting wins, but it does make me think about the intensity. And it does remind me of Pete Carroll at USC when he hired a special teams coach, and it was a violation. And, Pete was always pushing the envelope. Competition Wednesday moved beyond that, pushed the envelope. And he got very frustrated, Pete did, with the NCAA, and eventually went to the NFL. And I remember a couple of years before he left, his name came up with the Miami Dolphins. And I thought, oh, why would Pete leave? He's done the NFL. He's been fired twice. Why would he go back to the NFL? But he got very frustrated with the limitations in the NCAA of college football. And so I think Jim Harbaugh, relentlessly competitive. We know that, like Pete. And he's having great success at Michigan. And I could see him getting frustrated. I think he's much more important for college football than pro football. I hope he stays in college football, but it's got a Pete Carroll feel to it. It's got a Pete Carroll feel that Jim Harbaugh wants to take one more big swing at the NFL. And as great as Pete Carroll was at USC, I mean, it's hard to remember when he was there. It's like such a distant memory. And I mean, Harbaugh is still vibrant and young. He's got 15 more years. He's got incredible energy and juice. If Jim went to the NFL after this year and coached for 15 years somewhere, would it surprise anybody? Hope he stays at Michigan. But I think he sort of looks at this and the slap on the wrist for the hamburger violation earlier, and I think he rolls his eyes. And I think he thinks, you got to be kidding me. You got schools out there buying him players years ago in the South. I think he looks around college football and thinks, this is it. This is really, you're going to hold this against me. And I think it's a lot of the ways that Bill Belichick thought about Spygate and Deflategate. I think Bill Belichick rolled his eyes at it. It's not golf. It's not a gentleman's sport. It's you're going to push the envelope. I mean, Pete Carroll in the NFL has been tagged a couple of times because of practice violations. So I'm watching it. I'm interested to see the result. I read the latest story or stories today on it. Not that it was an eye roll, but it doesn't rise to heavy forfeiture or violations. But we'll see. All right, instant reaction. See you tomorrow.